Welcome back, PetaPixel viewers. It is Chris Nichols here, and look at this gorgeous camera that we're playing with today. We've got the 907X from Hasselblad with the new CFV 100C 100 megapixel back. I've got a set of lenses, and I'm in beautiful Canmore to take some great shots today. Now the Hasselblad 907X, we've seen this before. I mean, this is basically just a glorified lens mount for the Hasselblad XC lenses to mount on here. Really, the magic happens here at the CFV 100C back. So yes, this has been updated to 100 megapixels, but there's some other changes I want to talk about as well. But this is technology we've seen before. I mean, really, a lot of people would say, well, what about the X2D from Hasselblad? That's got the exact same 100 megapixel sensor, takes the same lenses. Why go with this beyond just the fact that it's stunningly gorgeous? Now the Hasselblad X2D, we actually made a video of it on the old channel. You should definitely watch that. There's lots of info there, but it's a more traditional mirrorless camera. So I mean, it's one body design. You get an EVF, nice back screen, command dials, lots of customizable buttons, and it also has IBIS, which is a big advantage over this camera. So why go with the CFV 100C? It's really because you want to have the modularity, not only to put this with the 907X, but even on like your classic 500 series medium format body, or you could take this back and put it onto a large format adapter so you get, movement and control. So there are some benefits to this, but we are giving up some things as well. Clearly no EVF. I mean, that's an issue as well. You can put an optical viewfinder on the top. They make it, but it's basically just frame lines for their more popular XC series lenses. No IBIS as well, and that is a big knock. I mean, with a 100 megapixel sensor, I can absolutely handhold this if I got good light and wider apertures and faster shutter speeds, but I'm not going to get the full benefit of that 100 megapixel sensor in most handheld situations, which is why today you're going to see this camera a lot on the tripod. It really is just a different way of shooting. It slows you down, you take your time. I do really like that. And just like the X2D, it is actually still very portable, very compact, and very lightweight. Okay, so first off, let's just talk about how you compose shots on the CFV 100C. So the back screen here, it's a 3.2-inch, 2.36 million dot TFT. It's actually a really nice touch display. I'm going to talk about that in just a bit. As far as articulation goes, though, we don't have a lot. It is really made for landscape photography shooting. There's no side-to-side articulation. Basically, I can have it flat against the back, or I can pop it out to sort of a 45 degree and then flat to a 90 degree waist level. The screen brightness can be pushed up, and I have actually got it at maximum here, but even on a day like today where it's not, direct sunlight, I'm still finding it quite hard to see. So I've cranked up my screen monitor brightness, and to be honest, what I'm finding myself doing is actually overexposing the image preview so that I can compose and then adjusting my exposure back down to where I actually want to shoot, because sometimes it's still a little dim. But the other thing I'm really enjoying is the display control. So here I can just click this one display button. I now get a live histogram, which is really nice. It's quite small, so it's not obtrusive. I like that. I've got my digital spirit levels. I've got rule of thirds, grid lines. I mean, it's all really slick and really nice. And the touchscreen interface itself is very responsive. All right, so as we hike up the mountain here, we're gaining some elevation. It's nice to have a lightweight camera, and the CFV 100C absolutely fits that bill. So the back itself, 460 grams, the 907X, another 120 grams roughly. Let's just call it 600 grams fully loaded. I mean, that's really nice to carry just over half a planet. It's no problem at all. So the first thing I noticed when opening the camera box is just how gorgeous this camera is. I mean, it really does harken back to the 500 series of cameras, just beautiful styling. But Hasselblad's done a great job of marrying the modern and the vintage together, and I think they really succeeded. A good example of that is the grip. I mean, the grip matches beautifully, the metal's machined really nicely, and the grip does open up some possibilities for you. So you get dual command dials, whereas the camera itself just has the one command dial here in the front. You also get 4 customizable buttons. Now, these are preset, but you can change them to do different things like white balance or ISO or exposure compensation, whatever you feel you need there. Now, on the back of the grip, you've got this beautifully machined little joystick here, and it actually works really well for moving your autofocusing point around the screen. I like that. You can use it to navigate menus, but there I actually found it quite clunky and quite unresponsive. So it's a good thing the CFV 100 has such a great touchscreen interface anyways. I just reverted back to that. It's ironic that the X2D with its EVF actually really needed an autofocus joystick, and here we get on a camera where we don't really need it. Last thing I want to point out is just attaching tripod plates to this camera, because it's something you're going to do a lot. Now the grip itself does have a really nicely thin machined piece of metal with a 1/4 inch 20 in the bottom, and that's so you can still take the back off while the grip is attached. Unfortunately, it doesn't give you much purchase to actually put on a tripod plate, so it's a little bit iffy. I mean, again, the camera is lightweight, I'm not too worried about it, but I wish there was more to hold on to. Now, if I'm not using the grip, I get a much flatter base to attach tripod plates, but if I do that with a big plate, I won't be able to take the back off here very easily. Now here on the bottom of the camera, we've got this rubber door that opens up. We got our cable release. We got an in-sync and out-sync for flash. We also have a connection for an older ELX motor drive. And then on the top of the camera, you do have this flash attachment that you could put on. It actually has electrical connections that go through, slides right in on top. And this gives me TTL flash capability. I'm going to be using this actually when I do our flash portraits later on. To the side of the camera, we've got our battery and our storage. So this does take CF Express Type B cards, but more importantly, there's a terabyte SSD inside the camera. That's a lot of space, and it's also very fast to access. So even with these big 16-bit RAW files that I'm shooting today, it's nice and quick and snappy. The battery itself charges right in the camera if you want. It gives us about 420 SEPA rated shots. I would absolutely want a spare though. I do find that the power is going through here pretty quickly. Everything though charges very easily through a USB-C port right here on the side. Now as far as the body goes, this is perfect for travel. It's perfect for hiking. It's perfect for, landscape photography. But I wouldn't say that it's tremendously well sealed. I'd be really worried about taking this camera out in rain or snow or anything like that. But if you've got a fair weather day, it's fantastic. So I am finding one thing here on this camera as far as exposure goes a little bit tricky. So today we've got a lot of beautiful light. We've got sun coming through, misty clouds and stuff. I mean, lots of contrast. So what I actually find is if I follow the live histogram, I'm actually going to be overexposing a lot of those brighter areas. It's not really registering that. My camera meter is showing that I'm actually a fair amount overexposed, and when I go into playback, I'm seeing that my playback histogram definitely off the chart overexposed. I'm getting blinkies, I'm losing a lot of highlight detail, which you absolutely don't want to do. And this is happening whether I shoot RAW plus JPEG, JPEG only. I thought there might be a different, maybe it's reading the JPEG instead of the RAW information. That doesn't seem to be the case. So what I'm finding is if I've got a contrasty scene with a lot of bright and dark situations, really, I'm going to go off the camera meter more so, and I'm going to definitely double check in playback to make sure that my playback histogram looks solid. If I've got a scene where I don't have a lot of contrast, that live histogram seems to be matching quite nicely.
I'll be in Wisconsin, where my childhood was found. I've been talking about getting out of town. Out to the mountains, where I can put my anchor down. I'm gonna get out of town.
Okay, let's talk about image quality, because that is one of the premier features here on the Hasselblads. Now, we have seen this sensor before. This 100 megapixel medium format sensor has become ubiquitous in the medium format market. Tons of detail, absolutely very sharp, great dynamic range. I mean, perfect when you want to have high resolution. You also want to capture lots of tonality. Now, we've also seen the sensor in the Hasselblad X2D, and the first thing I want to address is this does shoot 16-bit RAW files. And here's what I'm going to say about it. Look, it is an improvement. It's just not that big an improvement. I mean, for what we saw, we're getting about under a third of a stop improvement in dynamic range. That's not a lot. That being said, there's no real reason to shoot 14-bit either. It does speed things up a little bit if you're shooting quickly, but this isn't really the kind of camera to shoot quickly. And frankly, you're going to get the same file size because they wrap the 14-bit files in a 16-bit wrapper anyways. But overall, on the Hasselblad cameras, I mean, whether you're shooting 14-bit or 16-bit RAW files, you're still going to get gorgeous 100 megapixel shots with beautiful glass in front of them. So the image quality here is excellent.
All right, it's Jordan here, taking portraits. What's going on? Well, I figure you're all tired of lit portraits of me, so I'm going to be taking a few shots of Chris here. As well, I tested the X2D a while back, and I did have some issues when I was shooting with a flash in terms of autofocus sync, so I really want to make sure that those have been resolved with the new camera body. So we're doing lit portraits right now, and one of the best things about shooting with the Hasselblad medium format cameras is we have leaf shutters in these. So to start things off, I popped a picture of Chris at a 250th of a second. You can see it makes the background dark, but we can definitely still get some context as to where we are. But I'm tired of snowy portraits. I'm tired of snow. I'm going to kill that. So I've cranked my shutter speed up now to a 1500th of a second, and you can see I can just absolutely knock the background out. So unlike a traditional mirrorless focal plane shutter, I'm able to shoot at these very fast sync speeds without resorting on something like high-speed sync, which really drops your output. I want a lot of output to really knock that background out, so that's why I'm glad I've got the Westcott FJ400 here. I love that it's battery powered. We can just drag it right out to the hill here and not worry about a generator. So if you're doing a professional shoot where consistency is absolutely important, then the Westcott strobes are a great choice, and that's why Westcott is PetaPixel's preferred lighting partner. So back when I was testing a pre-production Hasselblad X2D, I ran into a real issue where it was single focus only, and the focus point was actually fairly large. So when I was trying to photograph my son, it would always focus on the brim of his hat when I had the focus point on his eyes. It was a real nuisance, but they've made some real improvements to the autofocus on this. First of all, we've now got a smaller single point, so I can put that right on the eye, and I'm actually very happy with the focus that I'm getting on it. As well, they've added face detection to it. Now, I was surprised. It's face detection, not eye detection, and it does exactly what it says it's going to do. Box goes on Chris's face, but I did find when I was reviewing it at smaller apertures, say shooting at f4 on a 90mm lens here, it was focused a little bit more like nose focus than right on the eyeball. So fortunately, I was able to go back to single autofocus point and get nice sharp eyeballs. But I would love to see a firmware update with eye detect. I mean, we're seeing some very fast lenses coming out in this system, and it would make a big difference. But overall, autofocus has improved, but it's nothing like what you'll see on cutting-edge mirrorless cameras. I mean, this thing doesn't even have continuous autofocus.
So, it's been a long time since I've touched a Hasselblad. In fact, I think the last one I reviewed was the X1D2, and that's still a long ways back. I never got to touch the X2D because of COVID, so it was actually fun to play with the Hasselblad camera again. And I have to say, I actually really enjoyed the CFV 100C here. I feel like the latest iteration of their menus and controls is a lot smoother and faster than what I remember on the older Hasselblad, so I really enjoyed shooting it. The autofocus is still fairly rudimentary. On a camera like this, I don't think it matters that much. There are some situations where it still wouldn't focus on a darker portion of a landscape, or I'd have to do the old trick of like moving the focusing point to where light and dark meet, that kind of stuff. But again, I'm taking my time with this camera. I think that would be more of a pain on something like the X2D if I'm trying to shoot on the street or something like that. But for landscape, for travel, for still life, for studio work and portraiture, I think this does make a lot of sense. Now, regardless, medium format cameras are pricey cameras, and you want to get the best bang for your buck in a lot of cases. You're going to have to naturally compare a camera like this or the X2D against something like the Fujifilm GFX 100 which is roughly in the same kind of ballpark for price. The Fujifilms are always going to be eminently more versatile cameras. I mean, they got better autofocus performance, they're rugged, they're weather sealed, great EVFs, IBIS, all of that, even video capabilities. But I did really enjoy the shooting experience with this, and I think one of the benefits here are the leaf shutter lenses. I mean, for flash photography, that's a really nice benefit, something that we still don't see natively on the Fujifilm series. I have no idea why they've done that. Also, the Fujifilm GFXs are nice cameras. They're not overly large, but Hasselblad are making some really compact cameras. I don't know why Fujifilm hasn't made a small compact medium format to counter something like the X2D. And even this camera, its form factor, so nice to carry around, easy to fit in a bag. So I really like this just for the idea of walking around or doing travel photography. So naturally, if you're going to do something more on the street without a tripod, the X2D makes more sense because of its IBIS. The lack of IBIS here does hurt this camera as far as its versatility goes. I would leave it on a tripod, but I loved it for what we did out there in Canmore, just shooting mountains, shooting rivers, that kind of stuff. It did a great job. So you got two interesting options, and no matter what, Hasselblad's come a long way since I played with them, and especially a long way since the Lunar and the Stellar cameras. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed our little look here at the CFV 100C. Leave your comments below. Let us know what you think. Please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Check out the podcast. It's on our same YouTube channel or all your favorite podcasting apps. Just look for PetaPixel Podcast. Thanks so much. See you soon. More episodes on PetaPixel.